words
I just want to make
"lee"
sure it's on.
and "low." Um, I don't understand, when is "lee" appropriate, when is "low" appropriate, and I oftentimes get,
Oh, le and lo. Okay,
yeah,
yes.
and I oftentimes get it
That
wrong and do "lee."
you will be happy to know, Andres, that your question is a common question. And even when people learn it and know it, they're still puzzled by it. So it's a
Hmm.
super common question.
Hmm.
Um, I think we'll be able to make some time
Okay.
to talk about that today. I don't want to lead off with it,
No, that's
but we
okay.
will come around to it because
Okay.
that whole thing with le and lo is it's a stinker. It's a hard question. It's a tough one because our English does not have the same kind of distinction that they
Hmm.
do in Spanish, and that is why it happens. So we'll take a
Yeah.
look at that later on, but I'll make sure we touch on it today.
Okay. All right.
And more than just touch on it, we kind of, yeah, do some appropriate stuff with that. Okay. A ver. Bum, 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 bum. And as a matter of fact, in order to prepare for that, ooh, okay.
Right on.
Oh, I need to bring back. Oh, no, I don't have to bring backwards. Okay, I have it set up for that. We will get into that. We are going to do some deep dive stuff with pronouns and um, the emphasis or what you were asked to prepare was some stuff regarding or practicing our reflexives. And reflexives are really important to get used to because you will hear them a lot. And they are introduced as reflexives, reflexive verbs, and they have accompanying pronouns. Um, that are called reflexive pronouns. And we teach people that reflexive verbs indicates that the subject that is doing the action also receives the action. And while that is true, there are sadly kind of quite a few reflexive verbs that are common that people use a lot, but they don't make sense in the context of I do this to myself, like I wash my own hands. Okay, so the explanation that the subject also both does the action and receives the action because I do the washing and I wash a part of my body. Yes, that is correct. But some reflexive verbs don't follow that explanation neatly. Yet they are still reflexive verbs. So um, the bottom line, I guess, is going to be, and we'll see some of this today in our practice, that even if the idea of doing the action and receiving, being on the receiving end, doing it to myself, or a guy doing it to himself might not make sense. You have to kind of get used to some verbs are just reflexive, and it's almost better to just say, I accept it. It's reflexive, and that's it. And just get used to the use. But there are a lot of them that will do that kind of funny curveball thing. And yeah, you just kind of have to accept they are the way they are. So, okay. All right. What I do want to know, whoops, and we're going to take a look at some of our little drills we had with pronouns first. So I'm going to pop this up on our screen. Okay. And a quick review is that these pronouns in purple, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Oops, wrong way. We're going to make these bigger so they're easier for you to read on your screen as we talk together today. Uh, These in purple are what we call the reflexive pronouns. And you will notice that pronouns that are direct objects or indirect objects or reflexive pronouns all share in common these same pronouns of me,
Okay.
te,
Right.
yeah, and nos. They all share those. So essentially, knowing if an object, a thing that receives, is being acted upon by the action, knowing whether it's direct or indirect or reflexive doesn't matter. You don't need to like know the distinction if it's a metenos because they all use the same pronouns. So it's not a biggie. But the thing to keep in mind with this purple box of reflexives, which we're going to look at very, very much in depth today, is that with this box only, the purple box of reflexives, the pronoun has to be the same kind, the same family of pronoun as the verb. So that means a a yo verb has to use a me pronoun, yeah? A
Mm.
tu verb form has to use a te, right? Nosotros verb form has to match up with the nos. And then we've got se in that other category, right, for third person. So, in other words, the pronoun and the verb have to make nice. They have to be in a similar kind of format, a matching kind of format, right? Um, so, um, with reflexives, that matchup has to happen. I can't use me with a nosotros verb. Okay, I can't use te with a yo verb. I mean, I can use te, but then it's something else. Like, I told you. Okay, then I've got the you, the te, matched up with a yo verb, but they're not reflexive. Yeah. It means I'm doing the
Mm.
action, but I'm doing it to you. So yeah, that's where that happens. So the ones we're going to be working with right now are going to be making nice, coordinating, matching up, because they're reflexives, and that's what reflexives do. Okay, a ver. So we've got bum, 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 bum. See, and again, you have that slide from the same thing that shows you how they must match up. Okay. And that will always be the case if a verb is reflexive. Okay. If a verb is reflexive. So we're going to look at these today. And I think I gave you a list of some verbs. So let's take a look at some typical verbs. Let me get there we go. We're going to take a look at verbs that often are going to be considered reflexive. And that means sometimes the verbs are not reflexive, right? When the se hangs off the back end of the infinitive, that's the indication that a verb is in the category we call a reflexive verb. If you looked the verb up in a dictionary, meaning it wasn't being conjugated yet, you just look it up in the dictionary, the se hanging off the end means this is a reflexive verb. All right, so we've got a whole bunch of examples of levantarse, acostarse, dormirse, comerse, fijarse, pintarse, quedarse. And that quedarse one is kind of a biggie. We're going to come back to that a little bit later on. Ir and irse, we'll talk a little bit more about that too, because that's a special category and that happens a lot. Poner and ponerse, quitar and quitarse, and so on and so forth. This one you would not hear a lot. I'm going to point out what you would not hear a lot. Sentar as a verb by itself, not reflexive, does exist, but that exists in an action where you said something like, the maitre d' seated the patrons, right? He took them to their seats. Or an usher at a theater looks at your tickets and he shows you to your seats. That is the action of sentar. And because we're not in that situation a lot, or we don't really talk about that situation with great frequency,
Right.
uh, you won't hear it as much, but you will hear sentarse, reflexive, way, way, way more than the non-reflexive because people sit down all the time, but they may not be seated. Yeah, in a formal, this seat is reserved for you kind of idea. So sentarse is used way, way, way more than just sentar. To give an example, okay, so the context really drives what we do with that. Um, Bien. And then we've got this last list that I gave you of afeitarse, cortarse, lastimarse, to hurt yourself, right? Vestirse, to get dressed, preguntarse, to wonder about. So, okay, let's see if we can build some ideas with this. Um, if we want to express the idea of, wow, it's hot. Okay, that's not reflexive yet, right? Hace calor ahora or hoy or whatever you want to do to talk about today. Yeah, hace calor. The snowbirds, and we're just going to use snowbirds. uh, los snowbirds. That doesn't exist. Uh, uh, los snowbirds are taking off. And we're going to take irse. Irse. Irse means getting the heck out. Okay? Leaving a place. It's kind of like using salir in a way, only it's a different verb for variety. Yeah. So, how will we use irse to talk about los snowbirds?
Se van.
Se van. Se van. Se van. They're leaving, they're getting out, right? And notice with this verb, we're not really talking so much about where they're going. The emphasis is
We're
not
just
so
getting out.
much on, yeah, on the destination, right? Just on, there you go. Exacto. Just on the idea of, ooh, getting out of here. Yeah.
Right.
So really in English, it's more like taking off, getting out, leaving. Yeah. A lot of slang we use for those kind of ideas, but se van. And I'm going to add a little extra phrase besides the se van. The se van is present, presente, right? Because you guys know it's presente. But I would say you hear this even more in the preterite, but it will not look like ir, and that will not look like van with a con B, with a B chica, with a little b. It will look like this. So I'm giving this to you because you actually hear it a lot. To say it in the past, which is even the more common, it's se fueron. Ellos se fueron. Se fueron. And you might even see people doing this with their hands. Se fueron. Se fueron. And what that means is they got out. They took off. They left. And the singular would be se fue. He left, she left, se fue. So I give you these because actually you'll hear these more in the past and think about it. It's a context thing. How often do you just say, oh, he left? Somebody asked, hey,
Where's Mark?
¿dónde está Tomás? Where's Tom? Ah, se fue. He took
Fue.
off. Yeah, he took off. So se fueron to talk about a group and se fue to talk about one person. Se fue. All right. Because you'll actually hear that more in past, but I don't expect you to know that. You don't know how to do the past out of ir. It's super irregular. Okay, so my brother is visiting, but he's not staying at my house. And we know that staying is going to be quedarse, quedarse. And now here is one of those verbs that, does it make any sense to say he's staying to himself?
No.
No, that makes no sense in that traditional definition of reflexives, but that is a reflexive verb. So let's take a look at the whole idea. Mi hermano visita, pero, oh, he's not. So we're going to have to put a no in there. No. And what do we do with quedarse? And it's a very regular verb. We can't use me, te, or nos because I'm not talking about myself or group or you. I'm talking about one guy who happens to be
Se.
my brother. So we use se.
Sí.
And what do we do with quedar?
Queda.
No se queda. No se queda en mi casa. Okay? No se queda. No se queda.
No sé qué.
No se queda. And the third person singular, the se, matches up with the third person singular verb queda. No se queda. And here it's just a negative because he's not staying. No se queda. No se queda. Okay? And notice when you get a haircut, just to cut like a piece of paper is cortar, but cortarse is to get it cut off of your body. And now this does not necessarily mean that you are cutting your own hair. Yeah. But when you get that haircut, right? I cut my hair every 6 weeks. ¿Cómo se dice cortarse para yo?
Me corto.
Me corto.
Me corto, me corto, me corto. Now, you could potentially, maybe, but I would say not super likely. Here, a yo me corto. I'll put the yo in parentheses. And if somebody does that, they're saying something like this idea in English of the voice. Well, I cut my hair every, why don't you? I do it. All right. And then they include the yo. But usually they're not going to include the idea of yo because the me corto is enough. It's the shortest way to say it. And we don't need a yo because corto is already in the yo form. Yeah. And it's there anyway. Me corto el pelo cada seis semanas.
Semanas.
Bien, sí. Vale, bueno. Even something, and this sounds kind of innocuous, kind of innocent, comerse. You don't eat yourself. Yeah, that does not happen. It makes no sense. But the definition of that verb is altered somewhat by the se. And the idea is like eat up, like eat it quickly. Like we've got an English verb that is gobble. Yeah. There are a lot of slang terms we use for somebody who just kind of, oh, they inhale their food. Yeah, that's comerse. Yeah. Somebody who eats super fast or they just devour everything off of the plate, like lick it clean. Okay. And this idea of eat up, well, that doesn't make sense in English either. How do you eat up? I don't know. How did that happen in English? But that's the idea we use. So the idea they use to express that is making that verb comer, making it reflexive. Mi nieto is really hungry. Tiene mucha hambre.
Hombre.
And remember, this is something that deviates. Is really hungry. We can't use is. We have to use tener hambre to say somebody is hungry. Mi nieto tiene mucha hambre. He's eating up everything on his plate. Se come todo en su plato. Se come todo.
Se come.
Se come todo. Se come todo. And the se come is, we match up the come, third person, with se, that little reflexive pronoun there to get to se come, se come. All right, and now we've got I put on a hat when it's sunny. And to put something on your body, whether it's sunscreen or perfume or clothing, whatever you're putting on your body, that becomes a very
pongo.
traditional kind of sense of that reflexive verb. ¿Cómo se dice I put on?
Me pongo.
Me
Pongo.
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 We do have a little
Pongo.
irregular yo here, right? Me pongo. Me pongo un sombrero cuando hace sol.
Hace sol.
Cuando hace sol. You can also say instead of hace sol, there, trying to, wow, what happened? Oh, there we go. The computer popped me out of my keyboard for Spanish. Hace sol or está soleado. Both of those phrases mean it's sunny. They have two ways of saying it. Hace sol, literally it makes sun, or está soleado. And that soleado is sunny, okay? The actual literal word sunny, está soleado. But me pongo un sombrero, see? Okay, and nadie is going to be a third person singular idea. Nobody takes a singular kind of verb, right? Nobody pays attention to it. To pay attention to or to notice is fijarse, And nadie does not mean yo or tú or nosotros. It's just a singular idea in Spanish. So nadie, we need a se, and what are we going to do with fijarse?
Fija.
Fija. Yeah, but we don't want that to sound like a J. We want it to sound like a ja, ja, ja. Fija. Nadie se fija, sí, en ese letrero. Letrero is a sign, see? En ese letrero. Nobody notices that sign. Nadie se fija. Nadie se fija. Okay? Bien, bueno, sí, Julie. Oh, and you're on mute. Oh, no, you're still on mute. There you
Yeah.
go. There
Okay.
you go.
This is unrelated, but on the me corto el pelo, why is it L? And then when we get to the mi nieto tiene mucha hambre, it's su plato. Why aren't they both L? I told you it was unrelated.
The su plato?
The possessive, the su at versus el plato and el pelo.
Oh, you could put it in el plato because
you
I
use
had
it?
the idea of his plate, su plato.
Right.
But,
Okay. So you could use either.
you know, you could just as easily make it el. The difference is just the plate versus something that belongs to him.
But when you use the el pelo, it seems as though I've never heard it mi pelo. It's always el pelo. Is that optional also?
Oh, like this.
Yeah. When do you use
Buena pregunta. This is a very good question. Okay. Sí. Yeah. Why, if I say his hair, and I'm going to tell you in this case, it really, really should be el pelo, not su pelo.
not mi pelo?
Well, yeah, or not mi pelo. Yeah, not mi pelo, my hair. Because in most cases, not 100% of the time, but in most cases, when we talk about parts of our body, they tend to just use the word with that. Okay. So, me duelen los ojos means my eyes hurt. Me duelen los ojos. Instead of saying my eyes, it's just uses los ojos. So parts of the body generally don't get the my, your, his. They might if there's a specific need to distinguish my eyes from my kid's eyes or, something like that. But usually they stick with just the word, even though
you.
in English we'll put in a my for things like hair, arms, fingers. Yeah. It's just a little oddity. It's not a thing. If you mess up and use a mi pelo instead, somebody will totally understand you. It's not like the idea will suddenly make no sense to them, but it'll just sound a little off to them because it's just their habit to do that. There's not a good reason I can give you. It's just what they do. Okay. Bien?
Yeah.
Good so far? See how those match up? See? Se fija for a singular, even though it's a nobody, it's a singular noun, the noun nadie. So, nadie se fija. Me pongo. Se come, to talk about nieto, grandkid, right? Me corto, right? Se queda, and se van. Okay? Bien? ¿Vale? Okay.
Vale.
Bien. Muy bien, muy bien. Okay, so lots of reflexives do, will come up that will not necessarily make sense to you in this traditional way of I do it to myself. So we're going to take a look at some examples of that so that you're kind of prepared for it. Because these will feel to you, when you're listening to a story, it may feel to you like, use a baseball analogy, like it's coming out of left field. Well, I didn't expect that to happen, but you kind of have to go with the flow and accept some of these things just are reflexive. And okay, so some of these you will already have seen, but some are new. We're going to take a look at how things change. I had a student who once asked me, which was a super good question. He thought it was a dumb question. It was not at all dumb. It was a very insightful question of, can any verb be reflexive? Can all verbs be both regular and reflexive? Can I do that with everything, theoretically? And the answer to that is no, but often it almost feels like it should be yes. No, there are certain verbs that will never be reflexive, like llover, to rain.
To rain.
Yeah, it's not reflexive. Yeah. Nevar, to snow, can't be reflexive. But there are many, many verbs that might be possible to turn into a reflexive. And we're going to take a look at some of those now. So you can kind of be mentally prepared. Mejorar means to improve something. Okay. Like I might say, el estudiante mejora sus notas. The student improves his grades. Notas are grades. El estudiante mejora sus notas. What is he improving? Grades. The thing we call grades, his standing in the class, his achievement in the class. Yeah. Okay. But we might have mejorarse, which could mean to improve yourself, but usually what mejorarse, turning it into reflexive, is going to mean is to get better. Like after you're sick. Yeah. Okay. Mejorarse is to get better. It is literally to improve yourself, meaning your whole body is healing. Yeah. Mejorarse. So you'll hear phrases like, what's a common thing we often say? Somebody tells you, oh, I'm sick today. And you say, oh, I hope you better.
Get better.
Oh, I
Better
hope you get
soon.
well. I hope you get better. I hope you feel better. Yeah. And the way you might say that in Spanish is espero que, I hope that. And now it's going to use a subjunctive. So you're going to notice it's not going to do an AR ending that you're used to. Espero que te mejores. Espero que te mejores. And I know you think it should be te mejoras, but it needs to be a reflexive because the fact is you're not well yet, but I hope you get well. See, Julie.
Question. Could you use it to get better at some activity, a sport or whatever?
No, then it will just be plain not reflexive. See? Uh, 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 el nuevo miembro del equipo, the new team member, ¿sí? El nuevo miembro del equipo mejora sus habilidades, ¿sí?
Okay.
En el béisbol.
So
¿Ya?
it's only
Yeah,
physically.
because somebody is improving their skills. Now,
Skills.
you could theoretically maybe say se mejora, he's getting better, just like in general. But when somebody improves a skill, improves their grades, improves their recipe, improves something they're working on, that doesn't need to be reflexive. But when you've been sick and you're working on healing your whole body, that's mejorarse, yeah. And you'll very, very frequently hear, and you may even hear it expressed only as que te mejores, that you may feel well, yeah. And it needs to be subjunctive there, meaning it's not mejoras like you think you should conjugate it, but mejores because of the subjunctive idea. Okay. Llevar, I'm just kind of showing you how some verbs will change meaning. Yeah. Llevar is to take something and move it to a different spot. But we usually use the idea in English to translate llevar as to take something to somebody, to take somebody like in your car to a place. That's llevar, right? You take something or somebody, that's why we've got the dot, dot, dot. When you take something or somebody to a place, okay? You take flowers to your host of a dinner. Yeah, that's llevar. All right, but llevarse and llevarse is used either with bien or mal, well or badly. That's bien, well or badly. Llevarse bien, llevarse mal, to get along with. And to get along with in the idea of, well, I should insert it here, to get along well or to get along badly with somebody, right? Okay. So you might just hear the idea expressed this way. So let's see how they might use that. Los niños se llevan bien. Se llevan bien, ¿sí? Ahora juegan con el perrito. Now they're playing with the little dog. Los niños se llevan bien. They get along well. They're playing with the dog. Okay. Se llevan bien. They get along well. Se llevan mal. They don't play nice. Okay.
Okay.
But llevar is frequently heard in that reflexive sense. Ir, to go, and irse, to go away. It's got irse. A lot of people get confused about why do they have these. I mean, isn't that just go? Isn't that enough? And it might be. But ir is often used when you list a destination, right? But when somebody leaves a place, it will frequently be turned into this reflexive idea of irse. Okay? Somebody might, it's 5 o'clock. It's the end of the workday, 5 o'clock, right? You're in an office, and somebody might just say, okay, I'm leaving now. I'm out of here, right? I'm out of here, meaning I'm leaving the office, and it'll be just be expressed as me voy, me voy.
Me voy. Me
I'm
voy.
gone. I'm gone. I'm out of here. I'm taking off. And the emphasis is not where I'm going. I might be going to the bar. I might be going home. I might be going to a movie right after work, wherever I'm going. But just me voy. Uh, uh, Sometimes you hear it with a place, me voy a and a place, but most frequently it's just I'm out of here, right? Me voy. Me voy. Okay. Cansar is to tire. All right. So let's like an example. Um, let's say that you hate having to deal with financial stuff. Las finanzas, financial stuff. Yeah, las finanzas. Las finanzas me cansan. That whole talk of financial stuff, it wears me out. See, las finanzas me cansan. They tire me out. But cansarse is the idea of to get tired, to get tired. And get is the real idea here. Making that reflexive means you're getting into the state. Se with se often can be translated in many cases, not all, as this idea of get. We have this with mejorarse, to get better. English uses this word get quite a lot, right? To get tired is cansarse. See? Me canso. Me canso en la oficina. I get tired in the office. I get tired at work. Me canso. Yeah. Me canso. I get tired. Enfermar means to make somebody sick, like a food made you sick, or maybe the bad air had a lot of pollen and awful stuff in it to make you sick. But enfermarse is, again, kind of a change of physical or emotional state. So we use this idea of get again with the se of a reflexive of to get sick. See? Okay. Por ejemplo, ¿sí? Los niños del colegio se enferman fácilmente. Wait, we'll take our fácilmente out of there. Se enferman. The school kids get sick, right? And to say this idea of they get sick themselves, we would never express it themselves, but it's that idea of get sick. That's the English idea of how we express it. And Spanish will use a reflexive to do that. The idea of calmar, something calms you, okay? Something calms you. See, el calor me calma, the heat calms me. But calmarse is, again, it's going to be a change of state or feeling to get calm. Or we might say in English to calm down. And notice we use a lot in English with doing things up and doing things down. Yeah. We have a lot of verbs that do things like that in English with an up or a down kind of idea, right? So if you are telling somebody to calm down, right? And you do it as a, well, do you often do this as a command, don't you? Yeah. All right. And as
Yeah.
a command, it will sound a little bit different than as a statement of fact. You know, everything else you have on this slide is a statement of fact. Los niños del colegio se enferman. They get sick. Yeah.
Mm.
Me canso. I get tired out. Me canso en la oficina. But here it's a command, so we'll have a little bit of a different form here. It'll
Who's
be
calling you?
cálmate. Yeah. Our
Tomate.
kids and grandkids will say, chill out. Yeah. That's cálmate. Cálmate, cálmate, cálmate. Cálmate
Calm
is,
down.
yeah, calm down, relax, don't get excited. Yeah, cálmate, cálmate, cálmate. But notice something funny happens here versus the other ones. We've got se enferman, me canso, me voy, se llevan bien. But here we slap it onto the end. For a go do it command, when we turn a verb into a command, we have to slap the me, te. Well, it won't be me in a command because you don't command yourself to do something, but we'll slap on a te or a se on the end. So commands flip the position of that me, te, nos, se to the end of the verb if it's an affirmative verb. See? Bien? Pretty good so far?
I'm struggling with this enfermar.
Oh,
Um,
enfermarse?
yeah, to make sick. Does that mean you're making someone
That means
sick?
something makes you sick. See? But you know what? You're not going to hear that a lot.
No, I
You're not going
wouldn't
to
think
hear that a
so.
lot. So just like with sentarse versus sentar, very seldom do we talk about somebody seating you in a theater. Not often. I mean, we do, but not a lot. Uh, but sentarse we use all the time. Enfermarse they use all the time. Yeah. This will be much more common to get sick. See, Julie.
Can you use enfermar in kind of an abstract? The news I read today makes me sick.
Mm-hmm.
Could you use that?
You could say, yeah, germs make me sick. A virus makes me sick. Yeah.
Oh, the news makes me sick.
The news may,
Mm.
yeah, you could. Es
More
posible,
abstract.
sí. They'll probably not use enfermarse for that idea.
Okay.
But es posible. Yeah. So, yeah, uh, usually when we talk about getting sick, uh, we don't really say this virus made me sick. You can theoretically, but usually we talk in terms of I'm getting sick or I got sick or he got sick, right? So, yeah, that's just the way that works. Bien. Okay. So what I'm trying to show you is just how many verbs do this, the great variety of verbs. Yeah, we're going to do one more slide of these so that you kind of get an idea because sometimes it just feels very unfamiliar of why is this happening? You kind of have to go with the flow when you're listening to people communicating, right? Hacer means to make or to do. Hacerse can actually mean a lot of things. Um, but often when it's hacerse, it means to become.
Okay. Marilyn, can I ask a question going back
Sí, sí,
on
sí.
the kamate? If you wanted to put the please word in there, por favor,
Por
would you
favor.
put it in the beginning or at the end? Like, would you say kamate,
Los
por
dos, the
favor?
two.
Either
No
way.
importa, doesn't matter. Sí.
Thank you.
Por
Gracias.
favor, cálmate, cálmate, por favor.
Good.
Sí, bien, right? Uh, and the formal versus the informal, you know, cálmate you use with your family, your friends, people you call
Mm.
by their first name, right? And the way that we make that instead of tu command into an usted command would be would help if I typed it correctly. Cálmese, cálmese, cálmese. See, bien. So those are commands. Yeah. But you hear cálmate a lot. Cálmate is one of those commands you hear people say a lot because they want people not to get worked up about something. Yeah. And they say
Yeah.
cálmate. Yeah. Like, oh, hey, this is not a problem. Just relax about it, right? Cálmate. See? But just to get what I'm trying to do is give you an idea of you're going to sometimes hear things being used reflexively and it kind of changes the meaning. And sometimes you might have to guess if you don't know the verb, but I'm just trying to go through some things you're likely to hear. Hacerse means to become something. So, and usually this will be like more in the past. So I don't expect you to know that. But for example, you might say, my grandson became a teacher, right? Mi nieto se hizo maestro. Se hizo maestro. Literally, he made himself, but he became, yeah, a profession. So hacerse is often used to talk about professions. Somebody became a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, yeah, anything like that. Let's even take a look at this because this is often used in greetings when we do the chit chat of meeting somebody that we haven't seen for a while. Encontrar means to find, something was lost, and oh, somebody found it. But encontrarse has a bunch of different meanings. We're going to check it out. The most common one, the one I want to emphasize with you today, is encontrarse is often used to answer the question, ¿Cómo estás? Instead of saying estoy bien, right? Estoy bien, I'm fine, right? Somebody may choose, just because they feel like using a different expression, me encuentro bien. Literally, I find myself well.
Oh.
All right. Which maybe an old 1800s kind of literature in English you might hear, I find myself well, thank you very much. But we don't speak that way anymore. But me encuentro bien, me encuentro mal, me encuentro bien. I feel great is often used to answer ¿Cómo estás? And then it has to be used reflexively. Me encuentro bien. But you will hear people responding to ¿Cómo estás? Using that verb, right? And encontrarse can also have two other meanings. We're not going to emphasize these today because they get a little bit picky. But encontrarse with the little word a means you run into somebody, meaning, oh, you didn't call ahead of time and say, hey, meet with me at 5 o'clock, right? But you just run into them like, oh, what a surprise situation. That's encontrarse, right? And encontrarse, but with con means, aha, I did set up a time and I plan to meet the person. So just so you know, the main one that you should get familiar with as a reflexive is this one because it's a way to answer ¿Cómo estás?
¿Cómo
¿Cómo
está?
está? Me encuentro bien, me encuentro bien.
¿Cómo
Right?
está?
See? Bien. Ver means to see. Verse could mean to look at yourself, like in a mirror, maybe, but most often it means to look a certain way. Okay. Uh, and it can be as simple as te ves bien. You look good. You look well. Te ves bien, right? Or, you're complimenting your friend. You're complimenting your friend and I don't know, there's something your friend did, the way they dressed or makeup or something. Te ves joven, te ves joven. You look young. So verse can be used in that way. Yeah. And then I want to take a look at this one. Acordar means to agree. Actually, I should add something to agree on something. And you don't hear that often. It's a non-reflexive verb, but you could read the verb acordar if you're reading an article about two countries signing a treaty or two companies signing a contract because they're agreeing on something that's formal. How you are going to hear this verb is used reflexively. This is the most common verb, more than recordar, to say that you remember something, to remember.
To remember, yeah.
And this, even though most English speakers learn recordar first as a remember definition, this verb is more common than recordar. Okay.
All right.
But it'll have to be reflexive, right? Recordar is not reflexive, and this is. Okay, so me acuerdo.
I,
Me acuerdo. I remember. Ahora me acuerdo. Ahora me acuerdo. And when you name the thing that you remember, then you need to add the little word de. See? Por ejemplo, uy, qué problema. No me acuerdo del cumpleaños de mi sobrino. Oh, I got a problem. I can't remember. See, no me acuerdo. No me acuerdo de la fecha del cumpleaños de mi sobrino. I can't remember my nephew's birthday. Something like that. See? Bien. O, por ejemplo, mi esposo no se acuerda de nuestro aniversario. My husband does not remember our
anniversary.
anniversary.
Anniversary. Oh, kick him out.
Sí, sí, bien, okay, vale. So that is kind of the difference between reflexives and non-reflexives. Yeah. So I want you to kind of see that often you're going to hear certain verbs. And I've got a couple more things in the slides later on that we'll come back to later. See? Bien? Good? So far?
Yeah.
See? Vale.
Mhm.
Bueno. So reflexives will only pop up when you need them. You will not hear them. You will not hear them 24/7 all the time in every sentence. They come up as needed. And a lot of times, as you hear stories, you are going to hear them, of course, mixed in as they are appropriate. So the thing that's hard for us as English speakers is to distinguish when we're listening. Some verbs are just plain, kind of like vanilla flavor, plain verbs, and then you'll have a reflexive thrown in. So just notice when they're being used. And that hopefully will help. It's a matter of getting adjusted. Yeah, that's it. Bien. Okay. I want to know because I know this guy is kind of harder to understand because he does
Mhm.
talk a little bit fast, so that's okay. Um, the reason I chose this was that in a kind of a nice natural way, he phased in every once in a while, where appropriate, some reflexives. You know, he talked about, and the main theme around this, in case you didn't notice, was often he was reflecting upon situations where he has to be, where he's put into a situation of having to do small talk, and he doesn't like that. He doesn't like to have to just chit chat about nothing, like going to the barber, going to get his hair cut. And what are you going to talk about with the guy who's cutting your hair that you don't really know? Just everyday little stuff. And he doesn't like to have to fuss with that. So that was the kind of theme of his discussion. Was there something particular you wanted to ask about this, or do you want me to like run through some of his commentary? What would you like?
Yes.
Is that
Run through his commentary.
okay? So we're just what our purpose is going to be, and I'm going to kind of, I think, cut out the first part. Oh,
Can you slow him down? I put him on 75.
I could put him on 75.
No good?
Okay, we'll put him on 75. Since you asked, we'll put him on 75.
Otherwise, he's too fast.
We'll put him on 75. Oh, aquí. Bien. Speed. Here we go. Normal. All right, we'll put it on a little bit slower. And we're going to skip the intro.
Bienvenidos.
Hey, and remember, whenever you hear people saying, "Hey, chicos," they're not necessarily talking about boys. Yeah, it's just a slang-ish sort of way of saying, "Hey guys," like in English, "Hey guys," yeah.
Okay.
¿Qué tal? How you doing? How you doing?
Bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de Español con
pretty slow.
Juan.
And we're gonna
He
go
pensado en salir.
Oh, no tenía ganas. I didn't feel like, and it's a past. I know. No tenía ganas. I didn't feel like quedarme en casa. I didn't feel like staying at home.
Leave home.
So
Right.
let's take a look at this real quickly, because this is something you have to anticipate when you're listening for comprehension. Sometimes the first hurdle, because there are two hurdles here. Hurdle number one is we've got the word quedarme, which means staying in a place. Yeah. Quedarme. And hurdle number two is, wait a minute. It's not conjugated and the me is stuck at the end. How come? Yeah? Okay. Well, that's a normal question. And here is the little magic word that automatically signals I can't conjugate. The little word de. No tenía ganas de. I didn't feel like.
Staying at home.
I didn't feel like staying at home. And first of all, in Spanish, they won't use the word like. But this phrase, tener ganas de, needs this little word de, and any and all verbs that are immediately attached after a preposition, like de, en, a, con. After a preposition, the verb has to go into infinitive. Boom. But because it's reflexive, it will need the little pronoun. And he's still talking about himself, right? I don't feel like saying. So instead of that, quedarse being se, because he's talking about himself, it has to be quedarme.
Quedarme. Okay.
So it's in an infinitive because it follows de, and they just have a rule in Spanish. After a preposition, de, en, a, con, we need an infinitive. Okay. And because this infinitive is reflexive, we just make it a reflexive because he's talking about himself. I
So
didn't
can I ask a question?
see.
So, and maybe this is a silly question, but could you put the me before
Quedar?
Kadav?
Could I do that? No, I cannot. If it's an infinitive form, if it is not conjugated, that pronoun that's has to be attached to the end. That
Okay.
is 100% thing. In an infinitive format, if I don't conjugate that verb quedar in this example, I have to slap the pronoun on the end. And it's not conjugated. Yeah. See, it can't be me quedar, quedarme. Yeah.
Quedame.
The me
Okay.
comes up front when I conjugate the verb. Me quedo, te quedas. Yeah. You ask somebody, where are you staying? Ah, ¿dónde te quedas? ¿Dónde te quedas? And because I'm conjugating the quedas, it's got to be te quedas. Yeah. But if I ask, where do you want to stay? ¿Dónde quieres? There's my conjugation. ¿Dónde quieres quedarte? Quedarte has to slap on the te at the end because quedar is not conjugated. Quieres is conjugated, but right next to it, not conjugated, quedar. Yeah. So, no tenía ganas de quedarme. And you know what? I'm sorry. I think I need to speed him up just a little bit because
Okay.
it is so slow. It is tough to track.
A
Well,
darle
my
una
goodness.
vuelta, porque hoy es un día que no está mal.
Today's a day that's not so bad.
En fin, hace un poco de frío, pero bueno, no está mal.
It's a little cold, but not bad.
No llueve,
Not raining.
por lo menos no
At
llueve, ¿no?
least. At least
Y
it's not
entonces he
raining.
venido al parque, a este parque que es mi parque favorito de Londres,
I have come to this park, which is my favorite park in London.
porque es un parque, pero parece que estás en la montaña, en la naturaleza,
It's a park, but it seems like you're in the mountains,
¿no?
out in nature.
Es muy salvaje.
It's kind of wild.
En realidad no es nada
In reality, it's not at all wild.
salvaje. Está muy bien cuidado.
It's very well cared
y hay
for.
gente que, en fin, que trabaja aquí, que
There are people who work
corta la
here,
hierba, que corta los árboles.
who cut the grass, who cut the trees.
Tiene un aspecto
It has a natural look
Hello.
to it. Yeah. He's aspecto. It has a natural look to it. It's well cared for, but it looks natural.
natural, pero en realidad está muy bien cuidado.
In
Pero
reality,
bueno,
it's very well
me
taken.
gusta, es uno de mis parques favoritos y fijaos que
And here's our first one, and it's a you guys plural. So it's one we don't use on this side of the Atlantic. Ficaus says, hey, look, you guys. And it's the us, the you guys pronoun, okay? Ficaus is just a command. It's saying, hey, notice this, check it out, look at this. Ficaus.
qué vista, ¿no? No sé si
What a
podéis ver
view.
las vistas. Bueno, claro, estoy haciendo un vídeo
I don't know if you can see the view, and some people listen to this podcast so they can't see the view.
si estáis escuchándome, claro,
Oh, and let's take a look. Si estáis escuchándome, if you guys are listening to me, notice that sometimes these pronouns get slapped on the end of a verb. We're going to take a look in a little while at where you will find what position pronouns will take. But notice that in this case, the me is slapped onto the end of a verb. You can do that with ando y yendo. We'll take a look at that a little bit later on.
claro, no podéis verme, pero
And
bueno,
again,
yo
we've got
puedo
a verme. You guys
describirlo, ¿no?
can't see me.
Estoy subiendo una cuesta, por eso tengo
I'm going up a slope.
estoy subiendo esta cuesta,
I'm going uphill.
por eso tengo la respiración un poco
My breathing is kind of tired.
cansada, ¿no? Agitada,
My breathing is hard, labored,
porque no estoy en forma, chicos, no estoy en forma. Y
because I'm not in shape, guys.
además porque acabo de comer.
Just
Y
ate.
tengo la pizza, he comido una pizza aquí,
I just had a pizza, and I just got it sitting there in my
estómago
stomach.
todavía, ¿no? Pero bueno, y nada, iba a ir al...
And here comes our first really big reflexive. Iba a ir, I was going to go. And again, this is one of those past ideas. This is the past of ir. When you say, I was going to do something, you know, I was going to wash my car. I was going to wash the windows. I was going to start cooking at 3. And oh my gosh, look, now it's 4. Yeah, I was going to. Iba a ir. I was going to go. I was going to go get something done. I was going to go get my haircut.
Yeah.
A cortarme el pelo, iba a ir al...
Iba a cortarme el pelo. I was going to get my haircut.
El pelo.
I was going to go to
al
the
peluquero, ¿no?
barber.
A cortarme el pelo, porque tengo el
A cortarme el pelo for him to cut my hair for
tengo el
me.
pelo muy largo, fíjate.
Look, my hair is really long.
Bueno,
Fíjate, a command. Look at this. Look at this. Fíjate, look at this.
si me estáis viendo en vídeo, ya veis, tengo el pelo fatal, ¿no? Tengo el pelo fatal.
El pelo fatal is a bad description. I have lousy hair. Fatal looks like fatal, and it does mean that, but it also is used the idea of something that is lousy, in bad shape, yuck, doesn't look good, fatal. It's awful. I've got awful hair.
Tengo poco pelo,
I
pero
I have very little hair, poco pelo, just a little bit of hair.
largo, ¿no? Tengo poco
But-
pelo
but
porque
it
ya
looks
soy
ugly.
viejo. Tengo
I don't like it.
pelo blanco, gris, muy feo, no me gusta. Quizás me afeito la cabeza totalmente, no sé.
Ah, we got another reflexive. Quizás, hey, maybe I should do this instead of just getting a haircut.
Cut it
Afeitar
off.
is maybe I should just
Shave it off.
shave it all off. Quizás me afeito la cabeza totalmente. Maybe I should just shave my head completely.
No lo he pensado.
I don't know,
No lo
I
he
haven't
pensado.
thought about
Quizás hago eso, me corto el,
Maybe
me
I'll
corto
do
el pelo. No me corto
I'll
el
get a
pelo.
haircut.
Me afeito totalmente, ¿no?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to get a haircut. I'll just shave it all off.
En fin, es una idea que tengo.
It's an
Pues
idea
sí,
that I have.
iba a ir al peluquero, pero
I was going
al
to go
final
to the barber,
no me apetecía.
but I didn't feel like it. It didn't appeal to me. No me apetecía just means it didn't appeal to me.
Porque no me gusta ir al peluquero, de verdad.
I don't like going to the barber, really.
Los retraso siempre que puedo, siempre encuentro
I
excusas
put it
para no
off
ir.
every time
Pero no,
I can.
no me gusta ir al peluquero. Ya lo he dicho muchas veces, lo
I've
he
said it many times. I don't like
dicho
going to the
en
barber.
algunos vídeos que no me gusta porque no me gusta tener que hablar con una persona que no conozco mucho, ¿no?
Ah, I don't like to have to talk with a person that I don't know very well.
Yeah.
He doesn't like making small talk. I don't
Nope.
like having to talk with a person that I don't know well.
Y, en fin, con el peluquero tienes que hablar, ¿no? Es una situación un poco incómoda.
And you really have to talk to the barber. You're stuck talking to this guy
Yep.
that you don't know.
Para mí por lo menos es una situación un poco incómoda
It's an uncomfortable thing for
porque
me
tienes que hablar con una persona
when I have to talk with somebody that I
que no
don't know
conoces
so well.
demasiado, ¿no? Y entonces, bueno, no sé, es un poco extraño. Yo me siento un poco incómodo, ¿no? Claro, muchos pensaréis, bueno, no tienes que hablar, simplemente
Well, you don't have to talk.
tienes que, bueno, si él quiere hablar de algo, pues habla, si no, pues nada, no pasa nada.
Yeah, no pasa nada. Well, nothing happens. It's no big deal. No pasa nada is just a way of saying it's no big deal. Yeah.
no te hagas tantos problemas, ¿no?
Ah, here's a reflexive. It's a command. It's a command. No te hagas. And that hagas is an S. That means it's a to verb. Don't make so many problems for yourself. Don't create problems for yourself. No te hagas tantos problemas. Don't make so many problems for yourself.
Yo es que me hago muchos problemas, chicos.
Me hago muchos problemas. I make many problems for myself. And he is literally, now that's a very literal reflexive. I am
Yeah.
making problems and they come back on
Me.
me. Yeah. And we have that concept in English of I make problems for myself. Okay.
Soy así, me hago muchos problemas, le doy muchas vueltas a la cabeza. Total, que no me gusta ir al
And
pelo.
I think about it over and over. This le doy muchas vueltas. I turn it around over and over in my head. That's just a way of saying that. And notice it uses a le. We're going to come back to the le because Andres had the very good question of, wait a minute, when do I use a le and when do I use a lo? We're going to come back to that. I say the la in about 5 minutes, and we're going to start to look at that.
Peluquero. Tampoco me gusta coger taxis por el mismo motivo.
I don't
No
like
me gusta
grabbing a
coger taxis
taxi.
porque con el taxista tienes que hablar, ¿no?
And with a taxi driver, you also have to talk.
Es una situación un poco incómoda.
It's
Porque,
uncomfortable.
en fin, estás en un taxi.
You're in a taxi, and when he uses this word tío here, it doesn't mean uncle. It's a slang that they use in Spain to say a guy, a guy.
Okay.
Any old guy, Tom, Dick, or Harry, we have the expression in English. Any old guy, yeah? You got to be talking with some guy.
Con el tío allí, o bueno, normalmente es un tío, a veces una tía. Te lleva a algún
Sometimes
sitio,
it's a
¿no?
gal.
Y algo tienes que decir, ¿no? Y yo
And te lleva un sitio, algún sitio, and they're taking you someplace. And notice the pronoun here is te lleva. It's not te llevas, you get along. It's te lleva. It's not reflexive because the verb does not match up with that te pronoun, right? They're different forms, right? Somebody is taking, that's the lleva, you. Somebody, as we're talking about a taxi driver, that means they're driving you someplace, right?
Right.
Te lleva a algún sitio. They're taking you someplace. Algún sitio, someplace.
Yo soy muy malo, soy fatal, se me da fatal. Se
Yeah,
me da
I'm awful.
fatal ese tipo de conversaciones. Fijaos que
I'm terrible at these kind of conversations. He said.
paisaje tan bonito. Si estáis viendo el vídeo, fijaos
Now
que
he's
qué bonito es
talking
esto.
about the
Me
view.
encanta, ¿no? Me encanta venir aquí.
I love coming
A
here.
veces
Me
voy
encanta
allí
venir.
arriba,
I love coming here.
Hay una colina allí arriba,
And,
¿vale?
and there's a
Y a
hill
veces voy
there.
allí arriba porque
Sometimes I go up to
la
that
vista es
hill.
bonita, pero hoy, me vais a perdonar, hoy no tengo ganas de ir allí. Allí vienen muchos turistas, ¿no?
Lots of tourists come here.
Vienen muchos turistas a ver la vista de Londres.
Many tourists come here to see a view of London skyline.
Pero no. Vamos a continuar. Aquí hay un banco, pero creo que
And here he's not using the word banco as a bank where you put money, but banco as a bench.
hay una pareja aquí, una pareja de novios. Creo que se van a sentar.
There's a couple of
Se van a
boyfriend
sentar ahí
girlfriend.
quizás y yo no quiero molestar.
No
A
quiero
ver,
molestar. I don't
si
want to
ellos
bug
no se
them.
sientan, me siento yo. No se
There's a nice refrain. A ver, let's see. A ver, let's see. Si ellos no se sientan. Si ellos no se sientan, me siento yo. And the yo is an emphatic. Si ellos no se sientan, he's looking at the bench. Si ellos no se sientan, if they don't
I will.
sit down, me siento yo.
Okay. Me siento.
Then I'll sit down. Yeah. If they don't sit down, then I'll sit down. Okay? Bien. We're just going to take that half. We'll come back to this next week to dissect some more. Yeah. But you
Okay.
notice how every single verb is not a reflexive, right? Once in a while, it's kind of even hard. You can find some teaching structures that are some teaching stories that have just very high percentage of reflexives. But it's kind of tough to have just one reflexive verb after another, unless you're talking about something like a daily routine of what you do to get yourself ready during the day. It's not common to just have them all lined up one after the other. So they're always going to kind of hit you when you don't expect it. All right. And that's why it's good to listen to a story like that, because that is the normal pattern in which people talk. Some verbs are reflexive, some are not, and you kind of have to be listening and anticipating. And when you hear reflexive, oh, just notice and think about what's the idea they're communicating there. ¿Sí? Bien? A ver. Okay. So, reflexives. It'll feel a little bit like you're drowning underwater a bit when you hear a lot of reflexives, because you've got to be hearing for when they are and are not used. So, in a normal storytelling or conversation setting, you're a little off guard sometimes. Yeah. You just have to kind of let it come over you and figure out the idea they're communicating with that. Bien. Okay. I want to take a quick 5 minutes, 5 minutos, 5 minutes to show. Oh, let me try to get the right. Is this it? Es esto. Sí. Where these little words go becomes the problem. Okay, the position, word order. Yeah. Word order will not always match up between English and Spanish or English and any other language. All right. So where do these little words, these me, te, nos, se, and really any pronouns at all these pronouns, whether they are reflexive or any other object pronoun, meaning if they're a direct object or an indirect object, where do they go? Okay. The word order is a little hard to get used to. Well, a little bit for English speakers, yeah. In a regular kind of vanilla flavor, that means a plain old, ordinary sentence. Or whether it's present or past, it doesn't matter. The pronoun generally, in most situations, comes before, that means in front of, right in front of the verb. All right. So they'll look like this. Me lavo las manos, right? Mi esposo se levanta temprano. ¿Sí? Nos vamos de la oficina. We're getting out of the office. Nos vamos. So usually it's me lavo, the pronoun right in front of the verb. Se levanta, the pronoun right in front of the verb. Nos vamos, the pronoun right in front of the verb. But sometimes that will change. Sometimes that little pronoun, me, te, nos, or se, will shift and go to a different place in the sentence. So don't expect you're going to memorize and know these all immediately, but I'll send you this whole thing so you can kind of look at the examples. When we have kind of sentences that are not just one verb by itself, but when we've got two verbs that are working together, talking about the same kind of action, yeah, then something is going to happen in Spanish. You get a choice of where the pronoun can go. You can attach the pronoun to the end of the verb, or you can put the pronoun in front of the verb just like usual. Okay? And both of them are correct. So we're going to take a look at some examples of that. So the first verb, which gets conjugated, right, might be a verb like I want to do something, or I am doing something, or I'm going to do something, or I can do something. Yeah. And that is the part that gets conjugated. The second verb, that when we say two verbs are working together, the second verb is either going to be an infinitive, and it might be a reflexive one, or it might be a gerund. That means the ing idea in English, like walking, running, washing, eating. Yeah, that ing is what we call a gerund. And so you're listening for the second verb to either be an infinitive or an ando, yendo kind of verb. Ando or yendo. Ando and yendo is the same thing as saying ing in English. All right. And when we have this two verbs working together kind of sentence, the pronoun might be in front of the conjugated verb, or can it be attached to the infinitive or attached to the gerund? And both of those are correct. So something will sound like this. Quiero ducharme. I want to take a shower.
Right.
I can either say quiero ducharme and slap the me on the end of the duchar, or I can take the me, the pronoun, and put it in front of that very number one verb, because the number one verb is conjugated, just like the usual rule is. So, quiero ducharme means the exact same thing as me quiero duchar. Me can go in two different positions, and they're both correct. And one way is not more common than the other. People will say it however they feel like in the moment. So they're both correct. Okay? Or, va a despertarse. Are you going to wake up? Or, se va a despertar.
Okay.
Or is he or she going to wake up? It could be usted, it could be he or she. Right? So, attached to the infinitive or in front of the very first verb, which is the conjugated verb. And that's like the normal thing, right? In a plain sentence in front of the conjugated verb. So both of those are correct. These are examples where we have infinitives, an AR, ER, IR verb, a non-conjugated verb. But if I've got two verbs working together, instead of being verb plus infinitive, it might be verb plus a gerund. And here's how it looks in those situations. Yeah. Estamos lavando. We are washing. And if we are washing our hands right now, while we're talking about it, right? I can attach it to the ando part of that phrase. Estamos lavándonos las manos. Or I can take the nos word and put it up in front of the first conjugated verb. Nos estamos lavando las manos. Both of those are correct because it's the ing verb, and that's the two verbs working together. Estar with an ing. Estar, yeah, with an ing kind of verb. Here's another example. Estás poniéndote los lentes de sol. You're putting on your sunglasses.
Uh-huh.
Estás poniéndote. We can slap the te onto the ing kind of verb, poniéndote, right? But it's also correct to take the te in front of estás, which is the conjugated part,
Right.
yeah? Te estás poniendo los lentes de sol. You're putting on sunglasses. So when I've got two verbs working together, you might hear the me, te, nos, or se in front of the conjugated verb or slapped onto the end of that second verb. See? Para que sepan, so that you know. You won't be perfect at all those. If in doubt, go back to the very first rule, which is just put it in front of the verb. If in doubt, put it in front of the verb, like the usual plain example, and you're fine. But do know people have a choice as to where the pronouns can go in that situation, okay? If you've got a command and you're telling somebody, hey, do it, you're not talking about the fact that something is happening, but you're ordering somebody to do something. Then the pronouns, you're going to hear them attached to the end of the command. Okay. So if somebody says sit down, they're telling you to do it. You're not, in fact, sitting yet. You're standing, but they want you to be comfortable. So they say, hey, sit down. And that's a command. Yeah. It's kind of hard for English speakers to think about. Are you really ordering me? Well, you are. You're telling me to do something. And that thing is not actually happening yet. They want you to do it, right? So, siéntate, sit down, right? Hey, people, stand up, get up. Levántense, get up. That's a command. And that's why the se is attached to the end. If you say to a group of people, hey, all you people, up, yeah, levántense, yeah, all right. You tell somebody, hey, wake up. That's a reflexive. Despiértate, and we have to slap it onto the end. Despiértate, right? Te despiertas is a fact. You're waking up. It means it's really happening. You knock on the door, open it a crack, and yell at the person, despiértate. It means you're telling them to get up now, to wake up, right? Even a command like, have a good time. Enjoy yourselves. Have fun. Have fun is diviértanse. Have a good time. And we slap the se on the end, okay? Because it's an affirmative command. Okay?
Okay.
I'm going to leave that for now. I'm going to send you just those files for now. Okay? We're going to come back. Actually, we'll attach it to the end of this. Ooh. We'll attach it to the end of this. I didn't want it to do that. Keeps giving me the big, okay, well, it's giving me the big screen. It's giving me a headline screen, and I don't want that, but we'll take what we've got. All right, let's look at the difference between, we will make it a little bit bigger. Difference between lo and le. In a nutshell. This was the burning question, and it is a just and burning question. Lo, in most cases, lo usually refers to a thing, but that's not going to be 100% of the time. All right, so you have to be a little comfortable with the discomfort of lo can sometimes mean a human being. But lo, in most cases, and I think there's a video I'm going to refer you to, they talk about it's like 90% of the time, but it really isn't that high. But let's say 75% of the time, it's going to refer to a thing. Versus le is going to refer to always a person. Okay, so the lowdown, down and dirty, quick explanation is that in most situations, highest percentage, lo is going to generally refer to a thing, an object, or something abstract. You know, like, oh, I'll tell you all about it. What's it? Maybe it's a party. Maybe it is a spicy piece of gossip, right? It is very abstract. But lo generally refers to a thing that is a masculine gendered thing, or it can be an abstract concept. Le in most cases, well, really, it will always be a human being. Le will, I'll say 90, 95, 99% of the time be a person. Okay, let's take a look at an example. Ooh, and really, let's put this make this category a little bit bigger. Lo, or it might be la, or it might be a plural, los, or it might be a plural, las, versus le, or the plural of les. Now, I want you to notice one thing. Le and les has no gender.
Right.
Not masculine or feminine. Doesn't matter. But it means people. Always means people, right? Lo, la, los, or las usually are things, but they can be people in certain situations, depending on the context. So let's look at an example. I want to talk about my keys. I want to talk about my keys.
It's an object.
Somebody says, wow, ¿dónde están mis llaves? Where are my keys? And your kid or grandkid or your better half helpfully says, you dummy. They don't say you dummy. Hey, look, right in front of you, yeah? And they hand them to you, or they use them and didn't put them back on the wherever you hang up your keys or throw your
Right.
keys, yeah? That person in your house who just takes the car someplace and they don't put the keys back where they were supposed to, and then you go looking for them. ¿Dónde están mis llaves? Where are my keys? And somebody responds to you because they know you're talking about keys, and keys are a feminine thing, right? They're a feminine thing. And somebody says, hey, and they hand them to you. Aquí las tienes. Here you go. Literally, here you have them. Aquí las tienes.
Las.
The las is talking about llaves, because everybody knows that llaves are a feminine thing. Here you have them, right? Or let's say it's some document, some paper you had to fill out at some office. Yeah. You hand over and you say to the person, escribí, I wrote, escribí el documento. I wrote the document out, and you're handing it to whoever is handling your document. I don't know, Social Security officer, someplace like that, right? And you hand it over to the person behind the desk. Aquí lo tiene. Well, you might say tienes, but tiene or tiene, right? Aquí lo tienes. Here you have it. And the lo refers back to
The document.
a thing, el documento. Most of the time, but not 100%, maybe 75%. Lo, la, los, and las is talking about things. Okay.
Right.
We'll come back next week and talk about when they are people, but it will be more limited. All right. Now let's look at le and les. Le and les always means a person, a human being. So something like this. Siempre. Mejor, better.
Quiero.
Quiero,
Quiero.
quiero decirles las noticias. I want to tell you guys the news. Quiero decirles. And I might take that because I've got two verbs working together. I could say that as les quiero decir las noticias. There's no difference between those two sentences. I just take the les and I put it in a different position. And it's okay because I've got two verbs working together. Les quiero decir, I want to tell you guys.
Quiero decir.
And the les is human beings, right? Decir uses that
Yeah, that's-
Yeah. Or we might have an idea like, le pregunto, I ask a question of him. I ask him something. Yeah. Or I ask her something is a le. So the short, down, and dirty for today answer, Andres, but we'll get more next week, is that le or les is always going to be a human being or a group of human beings. And the lo, la, los, or las, well, that is usually an object, a thing, not all the time, but usually an object. So that's the short answer for today. See?
Right.
Bien? Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll take a look at some examples next week of when the lo, la, los, or las are actually not things, but people.
Okay.
But it's a limited context where that works. Okay. So what
Good.
we're going to take a look at next week is why do we have these two things, like one category of objects that is lo, la, los, and las, and some that are le or les? Why do we have those? Why do we have? Because they are confusing. But we're going to take a look at why they exist. Okay?
Okay.
Sí, bien?
Yes. Yes.
Bien. That's plenty for one day.
I think.
Plenty for one
Yes.
day. I will still find, I haven't found exactly the ideal listening video for today, but I will find one shortly and put that
Good.
in your email for today. Just something for listening comprehension, but we're going to come back to this idea and we're going to expand a little bit beyond reflexives. We'll do a little workup with reflexives. I'm going to have you do a little homework with reflexives so that you use it a little bit more. Yeah. And
I'll get it this time.
yeah, and we're going to expand to some of these other things on the lo, le distinction. Okay? ¿Todo bien? All good?
Bien.
Yep.
Bye.
Magnífico, magnífico. Okay. Espero que tengan muy buen día. I hope you have a really good day.
Thank you.
And wish
Okay.
me luck. I'm going to look at maybe a kitty to adopt today.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, they've got a teeny tiny one.
oh.
And I'm gonna
Where's
go
your kitty?
yeah, I'm gonna go take a look at a little rescue today. So
You'll get it.
yeah. Yeah, they're kind of high in demand, so we'll see what happens. ¿Qué va a pasar? What's gonna happen? No lo sé.